protest. I often hear from young people, and it struck me that there's really either that they feel that their protests are pointless because the media doesn't cover them and nothing changes, or they feel that it really doesn't do anything and that you're more effective with internet activism. And I really thought about this a lot because I grew up in the Haight-Ashbury and I'm the child of hippies, and so my formative memories were of very moving, powerful protests that I knew were changing things, not just politically, but also kind of spiritually in a way, like people were being changed and society was being changed. So I did some research to find out, and instinctively, I mean, that marches I've been on lately for the last decade, they really are, that you do feel impotent. You feel like you're engaging in some kind of weird Disneyland activism. You know, like there's going to be kind of Mickey Mouse and Snow White with a banner, you know, at the front. I mean, it's like totally fake somehow. Why is that? So I did some research and I discovered, and many of you are lawyers, you'll appreciate this, that actually it feels fake because it is fake now. I discovered that for 30 years there's been a systematic effort on the part of those who benefit from a small group of people holding power, a systematic effort to kill off effective protest by a death by 1,000 cuts of bureaucracy, over permiticization in jurisdiction after jurisdiction. So what do I mean by this? Is it okay if I feel like I can't see the people in the back? I'm just going to sit up a little. I looked at places where protest made a difference. Actually, I took one step back. In trying to answer the question, how do you save a nation from being closed by an oligarchy that wants to close a democracy? I looked at other times and places where citizens effectively pushed back against would-be dictators. And one thing that came up again and again and again is mass protest. Not only did it come up, but mass protest always works. Always works. I mean, unless the leaders are willing to literally send out the military with submachine guns and mow people down, mass protests like the kind you saw in Pakistan, the kind you saw with People Power in the Philippines, the kind you saw all over the Baltic states, Estonia, when they were bringing down the Soviet Union, the kind you saw in East Germany, always works. The civil rights movement, mass protest. Okay, so what kind of mass protest? The kind of mass protest that always works is illegal just about everywhere in the United States today. Why is that? For a protest to be effective, you have to stop traffic. You have to stop traffic. What keeps you from getting a permit in the United States? Stepping a foot into the street. Now, why do you have to stop traffic? Because for a protest to do anything, it has to disrupt business as usual. I don't mean violence. Whoever's tape recording this, to take it back to, Quantico or whatever, I don't mean violence. I mean dissent. Martin Luther King, who wrote Letter from Birmingham Jail because he marched without a permit, said sometimes it is important for the tension to rise up, for people to see that all is not well, and that you do that by stopping traffic. That's how citizens indicate, business as usual is not acceptable. And by the way, the founders did this all the time, up and down the eastern seaboard in the 1760s, 1770s, 1780s, mass protests of ordinary citizens who didn't like the British crown, and they dismantled the tax collectors' mansions brick by brick till there was not a brick standing. Or then they had their nation and they didn't like what President Washington was doing with foreign policy, so they had mass protests that brought everything to a halt. In city after city. This is the American mandate. Okay, so now we cannot do it, because if you are going to do that, you can't get a permit. And even so, there's this crazy section in Give Me Liberty where I try to use all my liberties as the founders intended. And I found out that it's illegal to stage a rally for the Constitution in Union Square without a permit. It's illegal, even with a permit, to use a megaphone. Meanwhile, commercial music is blasting out in Union Square. And I try to think about, registering my neighbors to vote, and I realize I'm risking $5,000. You know, it's illegal to make a mistake, an innocent mistake. And, you know, that you can't, you know, oh my God, if you try to get a friend to run for Senate in Virginia, you know, you go 2 clicks in and then you realize you need to hire a lawyer because you could be breaking the law if you have you know, a bake sale, you know, and you need a bake sale to get the money to hire the lawyer. And I realize, and of course, that last one is important because campaign finance reform necessitated, but apart from that, barrier after barrier after barrier has been deliberately set in the place of citizens to keep them from leading the nation. And so back to protest, there's this systematic neutering of our marches. So yes, you can get a permit to go from here on the mall to here on the mall. That changes, pardon me, all. It changes nothing. And it will never change anything. And whether the media covers it or not, it will never change anything. And not only that, but as our rights to assemble and petition have been taken away by stealth, because, you know, the First Amendment is still there on paper, there's been a militarization of our police forces. So that even if you dare to go have a real protest, you're risking, you know, very serious pain or death, which is not the intention of the First Amendment. My parents used to take me to peace marches in my stroller. I would never take my children to a march now because, you know what? Bloomberg armed every sergeant in New York City, one of the cities that has the greatest legacy of freedom and dissent, with tasers. Tasers have killed 300 people. They're so dangerous that more civilized countries like Canada are looking into outlawing their use. Or more and more police officers are using rubber bullets against citizens who are protesting. Rubber bullets are so dangerous and lethal that the British police stopped using it against the IRA because they were killing so many Irish civilians and ordinary people protesting. And then, if that wasn't bad enough, what's your Homeland Security money doing? Increasingly, it's being funneled into, totally in violation of the Second Amendment, which intends for our militias to be answerable to the people. It's being funneled to police forces in city after city. Homeland Security agents are training them in militaristic tactics. Now we found that even the military, where's the military? They're training police officers at St. Paul for the Republican National Convention. And if you see the movie of The End of America, you'll see footage that people smuggled out of militarized sweeps of innocent citizens protesting, innocent nonviolent citizens, violent sweeps, and terrifying, you know, Amy Goodman, a journalist, being dragged off bodily, screaming by people in, you know, who look like Darth Vader in vicious riot gear. Journalists I know told me, like Michelangelo Signorile, who's well respected, that there were agents that were not identified in St. Paul. They could have been Blackwater. They could have been from another government, you know, unidentified, fully armed, checking people's cars. Are you going to say, wait a minute, where's your warrant in front of someone like that? You're not. So this is the model for the future. And city after city after city is accepting these millions from Homeland Security and being trained in these tactics. And now we're going to face our actual military on the streets the next time there's an instinct to protest. And I guess I want to end this riff by saying I can tell you as a student of closing and opening societies that if you don't have the right to protest, you cannot defend democracy. It's not theoretical. It's not rhetorical. You just can't do it. Once the military are in your streets, you won't. If they mess up your registration, you're not going to say anything. You know, if they, whatever it is, you're not going to say anything. You know, that's the line. So you guys, please go. The next step on the agenda is to get the military, you know, back to where they belong, which is not our city streets. So and to also to pressure, pardon me, your local governments, your local city councils to refuse Homeland Security money to militarize the police forces.